Holy cow, guys. I cannot believe it is that time of year already where we're kicking off the School of September, and I couldn't be more excited. I love doing the School of September series. If you've listened to this show in the past, you know that my biggest passion is hunting elk in September with a bow. And so these School of September episodes, by the way, you know, we started the first year that I kicked this show off back in 2020. And they've quickly become by far the most popular, the most downloaded episodes that we do, because clearly there's a lot of you out there that love talking elk, listening to elk content, and you know, just doing what they can to expand their knowledge base as to hunting elk in September and how it's going to play out in favor for you to notch a tag. And so I just appreciate you guys. Before I kick this episode off, I want to do a couple things. I want to explain School of September and how to get the most out of it real quick. It's going to take me like 30 seconds. And then the other part of it, I'll get to. So the School of September, this is how I've described this particular podcast series, if you will. Obviously, this is the Western Huntsman podcast. My name is Jim Huntsman. I am the host of the Western Huntsman, and the School of September series is just a series, almost like a bonus series on top of the regular podcast episodes. So for those of you that don't know what it is, that's what it is. This show is designed to use your mind as like a toolbox. Okay, think of your mind being a toolbox. Well, what do you need in a toolbox? You need tools. In order to get a job done, you gotta have the tools. The most important tool on the mountain in September, besides your bow, and even more importantly than your bow, in a lot of cases, is the knowledge that's between your ears. What you know about elk. What you know about elk behavior, about elk communication, the little things, the nuances to elk. Elk are very... See, one of the reasons I say this is because I grew up mule deer hunting, and we mule deer hunted in elk country. And so, like... nobody back then in my group really knew how to hunt elk. And so we just kind of tried to hunt elk like we hunted mule deer. And you can imagine it didn't work very well, right? So that's the idea with this is for those of you, whether you're like, maybe this is your first year, maybe you've been doing this for 10 years, maybe you've notched a tag, maybe you've never killed an elk. The idea is your mind is a toolbox, and every expert that I bring on for these series is going to bring you a series of tools to put in your toolbox. That's going to be a game changer. Now, I'm not saying, you know, don't go buy gear, nice gear. Don't go, you know, spend money on different softwares or programs or apps that'll help you, all that kind of stuff. Sure, do all that. But guys, the priority, again, you know, I'm specifically talking to a lot of you new elk hunters. Like, if you've never heard an elk bugle, this is going to be more critical for you. The knowledge that you gain from these episodes, School of September, and other you know, episodes from other you know, podcasts out there, whatever. That knowledge is what's going to carry you to a point in which you are knelt down beside a gigantic bull elk. And I mean, even a spike, let's face it, even a spike's a gigantic bull, right? So it's going to find yourself knelt down beside an elk notching a tag. And that's what we're going for. These tools, pack these tools, listen to these episodes, take notes, listen to them more than once. And I'm not saying that to get like more downloads on the podcast. It doesn't work like that. Once you've downloaded it to your phone, it's not going to give me another download because it's got your IP address and all that kind of stuff, you know. So it's not because of that, but listen to them over and over and over again. And if you want, so that we're kicking off 2024, if you want, there are 3 or 4 other seasons of School of September. If you go to like the westernhuntsmanpodcast.com, not the westernhuntsman.com. That is a phantom website that I can't get rid of. The westernhuntsmanpodcast.com. You can go to the episodes and you could just scroll down, and you'll want to scroll starting as soon as last September, because I usually put the last School of September out in like either August or September. And you could start just scrolling through those episodes, and they're all labeled School of September. And so you can go and listen to all these. You know, we've had the Yelp Nut, Paul Medell on this show. We've had Dirk Durham, the Bugler, on this show. We've had Joel Turner. We've had Jason Phelps. We've had so many guys that bring so much to the table. Chris Rowe, John Gabriel, all these people that are just excellent elk hunters. These are the types of guys. I get really excited. Bear with me here. I get tongue-tied. These are the kind of guys that kill elk every year. That is not me. Your host here. That is not me. I'm not the kind of guy. I'm not on that level where I'm killing bulls every year. I give it hell every year, and I'm getting better every year. But I'm bringing on the people that actually put a bull elk down every single year, and they're really good at it. And they all bring a little bit different kind of approach or a twist or something to the table that in whatever circumstance you find yourself in September is going to be really, really helpful to you. So use these episodes. Don't be shy with them. Share them with people. That does help my downloads, by the way, so I appreciate that. Share them and listen to them again. Download them to your phone when you go up to the mountain. So, like if you're driving between camps, or you're maybe sitting around the fire at night and want to listen, have some kind of refresher. We're going to talk all sorts of things this season, from calling to spot and stock, to locating elk, to closing the distance, to shot setups. I mean, everything. We're trying to cover everything. I want to cover a lot of elk behavioral stuff this year. Knock, Chris Rowe. Hopefully you're listening to this, because he's my elk behavioral specialist, and there's nobody better. So there's a lot. So again, guys, I'm sorry. I said 30 seconds. I'm like 5 minutes into this. That is important stuff. I want everybody to know and understand what the point of School of September is, and how you can use it to your advantage as we approach the ever fast approaching month of September, for you guys that are as passionate as I am about chasing elk and bugling bulls and the great wild wapiti. All right. The other thing I wanted to cover, guys, real quick before I kick this episode off, is many of you have shared this episode. Many of you have written a good review for us. Many of you have shared the episode on social media, or put it in one of your stories, emailed it. You've messaged me, given me feedback about one particular episode or another. You've supported our sponsors by using the promo codes that we provide and utilizing the sponsors. Remember, I don't allow sponsors on this show if I don't personally use and believe in the product I'm talking about. All that kind of stuff goes a long way towards helping this show be successful, and I couldn't do it without you guys doing that. And I just wanted to give you guys a shout out and a sincere, heartfelt thank you for all the work that you've done, because remember, at the end of the day, the mission of this show is to preserve and protect the future of hunting by fighting against this anti-hunting movement, by fighting against those that don't understand this primal way of life that we live, by discussing and creating solutions to a lot of the problems, whether it comes from legislators or commissions or, just activist groups in general. That's really the essence of the Western Huntsman podcast. And by you guys sharing it and writing good reviews, man, I can't tell you how helpful that is. And so I really appreciate it, guys. We've got some great sponsors on the show. We've got Hoffman Boots. Promo code is Huntsman10 for that. We've got Phelps Game Calls, who is the one and only sponsor for the School of September series. We've got Savage Arms. We've got Silencer Central. Man, if you guys haven't tried a suppressor or a silencer on one of your rifles, it kicks ass. You need to get one. They're awesome. We've got Spy Point. We've got Barnes Bullets, the copper bullets, fellas, ladies and gentlemen. It's a game changer. Anyway, I appreciate you guys, supporting those guys, and I appreciate everything that you've done. This show has grown so far beyond what I initially ever dreamed it would, that I just felt like it's important for me to let you guys know how thankful I am and how grateful I am for the success of this show and sharing these episodes and writing the reviews. It all just ties into a big mission, and it helps make me feel like what I'm trying to do with this show is truly making a difference for the future of hunting. We've raised money. We've done a lot of things to help promote the future of hunting. So thank you guys again from the bottom of my heart. So this show is brought to you by Eastman's Hunting Journals, by the way. If you guys are not subscribed at Tag Hub for Eastman's Hunting Journals, if you're still planning all your elk hunts this year, Tag Hub is a game changer. You'll definitely want to check that out. If you're into mule deer hunting and you don't know much about it, check out the mule deer course over at Eastman's. Check out the Elk Collective e-course. That is a very comprehensive course that you can take one of those digital online classes that'll walk you through everything from multiple different experts as well. So, with that said, guys, this next guest is Cameron Hanes, none other. Now, I have described Cam as perhaps the world's most prolifically successful elk hunter, because Cam has been not only successful for a very long time and on a very consistent basis. Cam he does other things to inspire others. And he cares. He cares about the future of hunting. He cares about other bow hunters. And some of you, there's a lot of haters out there. I'm going to put it to you that way. There's a lot of haters on Cam for some reason. Well, it's not that I don't know where that comes from. I do know where it comes from. A lot of this stuff, hunting especially, guys, is very egocentric. It's very ego-driven. We all fall victim to this. I've fallen victim to this a million times, where it's like, I want to think I'm the world's baddest ass elk hunter or bear hunter or deer hunter. I have the most knowledge. I can go further than anybody else in the backcountry. I can, call in elk like nobody else, kind of thing. Everybody wants that. And I think that people fall into this trap where they see somebody who is just wildly successful at it, because you have to again remember what your priority in life is. Some people prioritize being really good at hunting more than others. And so that's a long way for me to say, earplugs for any of the kids that might be listening to this, fuck the haters. Fuck the Cam Hanes haters. We don't have time for that. This show is for grown-ups. And so we just don't have time for that. I'm so sick and tired of seeing all the hate and the vitriol on social media and all these videos and all this other stuff where you just see, these comment section, these threads, so to speak. The hatred amongst hunters, it has to stop. While we're tearing each other apart because somebody's jealous about the success levels of somebody like Cam Hanes, we have a much bigger enemy just sitting back, relaxing, waiting for us to rip each other apart. We're just tearing our own feathers out and kicking the feathers all over the yard with this kind of stuff. Everybody that chooses to do that needs to just relax and quit focusing on the success of others and worry about the success of yourself, and quit being a jealous, hateful little, what is the word? Angry grown-up that isn't behaving like a grown-up. It just gets so old and it makes my skin crawl. So that's my message to the haters out there. Because Cam Hanes is one of the most authentic, down-to-earth, best freaking human beings I've ever met in my life. He's a great guy. He's the same person behind the scenes as he is in the general public, that the general public sees, whether on social media or other platforms out there. He's the same dude. And that's what I look for. I always look for authentic people. They're not phonies. They're not fake-ass hunters that do one thing and portray themselves one way, but in reality, they're completely different behind the scenes kind of thing. I hate that kind of stuff. And so Cam has shown me more than once that is not the kind of guy he is, and he genuinely cares about other people and other people's success. He's the kind of person that will lift you up, unless you're the kind of person that just wants to tear everybody else down because you got a shitty attitude. So keep that in mind as we roll into this episode. It's a great conversation. And I know it's not all centered around, just talking about School of September and elk hunting and whatnot, but there's a lot of really good messages in it. And then we get into some elk hunting strategies and tips and tactics and stuff like that. So you guys are really going to like this one. I think you'll get a lot out of it. I do want to mention one more thing before I kick this off. I don't know if you guys are aware of something called the Elite Hunt Club, but my buddy Adam is part of this. And the Elite Hunt Club allows, basically you can go buy a drawing to win a, like right now they're putting on this drawing where you can win a Kodiak brown bear hunt. And it includes a Sitka blacktail deer for the fall of 2024. So it's with Alaska Outfitters Unlimited. And why I'm bringing this up, guys, is because many of you are just like me. We're blue-collar guys. We don't have 40 grand to go spend on a hunt. We wish we did, but we don't. And my wife wouldn't let me even if I did, I think. So what this does is gives the opportunity to those of us who, blue-collar, maybe we're not rich, basically. Let's put it that. We're not rich. So some of those like once-in-a-lifetime type hunts are like not even realistic for us as a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So what they did is they're putting these really expensive hunts together. And I'm only telling you guys this because I just bought the tickets here. But like instead of saving up for years to come, you could buy these tickets starting at $50 a ticket, or you can get like 5 tickets for $200, which is what I did. You can even like do, I think there's a $400 one too. But anyway, you buy these, and the guy that won the hunt last year for a big brown bear in Alaska, totally guided. All he did was bought a $50 ticket, and he won this thing. So they cap it out at 2,000 tickets. It's a really good deal. It's a great way for those of us who that kind of seems like it's unachievable for us financially. Gives us an opportunity to go on one of these hunts. It's a 14-day hunt. They're the biggest brown bears around. The hunt, it'll cover your food, lodging, license, tags, and even the guide tip. I'd recommend still taking money to tip the guide even extra if you're a good person. But all you have to do is get yourself to Kodiak up in Alaska. And anyway, I just thought I'd share that. Figured you guys would like that info. Jump on the Elite Hunt Club and get you a ticket. Again, they start at $50. I'll put the website in the show notes, by the way. And that way you guys have a chance to win that. There's only 2,000 tickets. They're going to sell fast, so check it out. Buy them now. All right, guys, without further ado, I hope you are buckled up and ready to go, because let me tell you something. Here it is, the end of March, but September's going to be here before we know it, and it's our favorite month of the year. Get pumped, get hyped, get excited. Let's kick off the 2024 School of September series.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to make 2024 your best September elk season yet? If you answered yes, my friends, you are in the right place. From the Western Huntsman Podcast and brought to you by Phelps Game Calls, welcome to the School of September, the most comprehensive September elk hunting podcast on the planet. Listen in to some of the world's most prolific elk hunters joining us to talk about strategy, calling elk, spot and stock, and closing the deal on some of our wildest dreams. From the Broken Time Studio to your knowledge toolbox, let's get one step closer to notching that tag.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast, and I am really excited to announce that this is the first episode of the 2024 School of September series, and I got a heck of a guest for you guys. This is somebody that I have wanted to have on the show since before I even started this show, almost, going on 5 years coming up. So, and we have done School of September every year, and I always love the first episode because it means that the snow is melting. You know, spring's usually upon us, and it's time to start gearing up for most of us listening to this, our favorite time of year. So I appreciate you guys joining me. So this episode, I'm going to kick it off. I'm actually a little nervous. I could tell by doing this intro, Cam. But I have got somebody who is never going to admit this, but I see him as the number one most skilled bow hunter on the planet, and I mean that sincerely. He has got a heck of a resume when it comes to elk hunting, whether it's backcountry, bow hunting all over the American West, and then beyond. The one and only Cam Haynes. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, Jim. I mean, it's an honor to be here talking to you. I've followed you, and I love what you've been doing. I love your work. I love your attitude, and I don't know. I I hate doing podcasts. I mean, which is crazy because I have my own
Yeah, you
podcast,
have one.
but I don't like being like the attraction of the podcast. You know what I mean? And so,
Sure.
yeah, I mean. I don't know. It's the nice things you said. I don't feel deserved of them, but thank you. And again, a lot of respect for you, and thank you for inviting me.
I appreciate that, and like I told you before, it just means a lot. I mean, you've got this huge platform. You've got close to 2 million followers on Instagram, and you're on Rogan all the time. So for you to take some time and come on my show, that's a big deal. And I appreciate it. That's a big deal to me.
Um, well, like I said, I like your attitude. I haven't heard you talk shit about me, so that like makes you in like this small little group of people that
what is it,
I
man?
like that guy.
What is it about you that you do have a lot of haters, like
Yeah.
proportionally more than what a lot of what we consider, I guess, hunting big name celebrity type. I don't know what we call them. I always hate the term like an influencer. But what is it? Why are there so many haters out there?
Um, I mean, I try to look at it objectively, and if I wasn't doing what I was doing, if I was like my earlier self, I would probably hate somebody like me too, because um, I've just been lucky. I've been lucky to get the opportunities I've had. I've been lucky to be friends with people who believe in me, and who I don't know how it is, but it's like I didn't really believe in myself, and still don't really. So it's like it took people believing in me and like supporting me to be able to get to this place. So I understand guys who, maybe they're at that place where I was, 30 years ago, and they're grinding, and they don't feel like there's any reward. They're sacrificing more than they're being acknowledged for. And then they see, somebody like me, I'm just the guy who's, I've been lucky to hunt some great places and be friends with some great people, and then had a few chips fall, for me. And so I understand it's human nature, when you're, especially for guys, because we're competitive. We all
Yeah.
have egos. Um, I was a hater too when I was, young, because that's kind of what young guys do. It's like you don't want to give some other guy credit because that you feel like it diminishes what you're doing. And so,
Yeah.
once you get older, you realize that, hey, I can give that guy credit and it has nothing to do with me. But some people, it takes a little while to get there. Some people never get there. So if I look at it objectively, that's what I see. And you can't take a person.
It's I think what's critical for especially young guys, because I think you're right, man. I think that we get in our own head from this standpoint. Like we look at somebody and it's like, man, they're achieving this and they're achieving that, and they've had all this success. They must be getting some kind of not handout. What's the word for that? They're getting some kind of advantage that I don't have, and because of that, I'm mad at them. And really, the only like for you, you're super humble about who you are and what you've achieved. And interestingly, it's not that you're just a regular guy, dude. I mean, you run 200 freaking miles at a time sometimes, and
Yeah.
that's not what regular people do. You've put a lot of work into achieving these things, and I think that people have this way to react to that. Like they have one or two ways they'll react to it. There's like this jealousy factor, and they find a way to be like, well, they have this advantage, and that they're doing this wrong, and it's because they know this person or whatever the circumstances that become haters out of it. A wiser person will take what you do and what you show, and look at that and think, okay, Cam is able to do, like I had this thing in my head that once you get into your 40s, your body's supposed to be broken down and you can't work out anymore. You can't be physically active because that's how my whole family was growing up. And you get in these mental boxes where you just feel like you can't break out of that. And if it weren't for guys like you, that I can see you're still out there doing all those things, and I think that that's why I've been able to work a lot harder and achieve. I wouldn't be in the shape that I'm in, and I'm nowhere near in the shape that you're in, buddy. But I'm in pretty good shape for a 43-year-old dude, and I don't know most of my buddies that are my age are not in my kind of shape, and so
Yeah.
it's because of that. And so the point is I would caution people that when you have that little fork in the road where you can go negative or you could take inspiration, always take that inspirational route, because even if it's somebody you don't fully agree with, there's a lot you could learn from that, and there's a lot you could learn from people that have been there and put the time and effort and hard work into it. It's interesting, man. When back before, like, this wasn't, it doesn't seem that long ago, but I was like 31, maybe 32.
Yeah.
I don't know, over 10 years ago. You came out with this thing that where, everybody knows, nobody cares, work harder, keep hammering,
Yeah.
all these kind of slogans going on. And I was leading a sales team at a heating and air company. And my job was to
Mm.
hire and train and sell these guys, teach them how to sell this HVAC. Cause it's a really competitive market. Um,
Hmm.
and I found this thing. I didn't know who you were. I found this thing on the internet back before Instagram, and I don't even know if I had a Facebook at the time. I'm pretty new to social media, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. But I found it through Google, and you're packing out a bowl on your back, and it just says nobody cares, work harder. And I'm like,
Hmm.
shit, man, that's perfect. That's what we need around here. That kind of attitude. And I printed it up, and it was all blurry because it was, it didn't have the right. I blew it up too big, but I
Oh,
had
I
it all
see.
printed out, and I put it on the wall in this little conference room where I was training these guys. And I did it again. It was back before I knew to follow people on social media and stuff. And that was my introduction to you. And so I had it on this wall in this conference room for a good year before I actually knew who you were at. And then I bought your book, and so
Yeah.
it's cool, man. I'm just it's exciting talking to you. So cool.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's that saying, yeah, that saying right there. I might be misunderstood, but even that saying is misunderstood because people are like take it personal, like, oh, you don't think I work hard, or you're like, it's just so weird how people can make everything about them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Oh
it's
yeah.
and all it means is that what you've done previously doesn't matter. If you failed or you succeeded, it doesn't matter. You just got to keep grinding. And
Yeah.
so that's the lesson in that saying, but people twist it and get offended all the time. And it's, I'm glad, I'm glad you understood it. And I do hear from a lot of sales people that that saying does resonate for whatever reason, because sales is cutthroat, but it's
Oh
not
yeah.
too much different than anything worthwhile in life. I mean, if there's a big goal you have, I guarantee somebody else has it. So,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
are you gonna stand out? I mean, the only people who don't have competition to deal with, they're like have these little goals that are shouldn't really mean anything. But if you start putting yourself out there and like, I want to, have a successful podcast like you're doing, well, you better be on your A game because there's a lot of fucking competition, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just the way it goes. That's life. That's life. You want cool things, big accomplishments. You got to be ready to work.
Yeah. Man, it's true. There's a shitload of podcasts out there compared to when I started this thing. But yeah, no,
Mm-hmm.
as it pertains to sales, that nobody cares, work harder. Yeah, I would tell a sales guy, yeah, you made a great sale yesterday, but it's today. It's today, man.
Yeah.
And you told me you wanted to make this much money this year. You got to keep on trucking, and you got to. I don't care about yesterday. It's today, and that's why I think it resonates with sales guys out there. I'm glad I don't do that for a living anymore. That shit is stressful, dude.
Yeah. How'd it go? I mean, did you kick ass, and
Oh
then
man.
how'd you transition into to do? Is this what you do full time podcast?
No, I don't do. I own a little roofing company now. So
Oh, okay.
there's still a big sales aspect to what I do on a daily basis. The difference is now is I own a niche company, and so I kind of work when I want and don't when I don't. So I can hunt a lot more and have a lot more free time. So, but back then, to answer your question, man, I came on board to a company that was doing a revenue of roughly $900,000 a year. Hardly anybody knew them. And by the time I left 5 years later, we were the number one in the market in two different markets. One part of it's, well, you're familiar with like Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and Spokane,
Mhm.
Washington, right? There's kind of
Yeah.
two separate markets, if you will. But
Yeah.
yeah, we were named the second fastest growing company in the nation by one of our distributors. And I was awarded for nationally ranked one of the best closers in all of HVAC sales nationally. It was cool. I got all these awards,
Yeah.
and yeah, and that's the kind of mentality that it took, and so
Is
we're
that
part of it.
was that from leadership and mindset? What made you good at that?
Leadership and mindset. So the leadership that I had for me, the owner of this company, his name's Tony. I still talk to him. He's a great guy. I mean, just one of those salt of the earth kind of dudes. He's been really successful in his company, and he does a lot of real estate stuff. He's the kind of dude that could go buy every truck on a truck lot, yet chooses to drive this old beat up junker around. One of those kind of guys. And he gave me the leadership and the tools necessary to build this sales team. And the mindset. I've just always been really big on reading those kind of I don't read fiction. I read mindset
Mhm.
stuff and sales training
Yeah.
and business building and leadership skills and stuff like that. So yeah, that had a lot to do with it, man. And just a
Yeah.
drive. I wanted to be successful.
Well, I mean, hearing that, it's not a surprise that you're successful in this too, because you can't, you have to be a winner. You have to have that right mindset. You have to be able to teach people in life to achieve anything worthwhile. And it's like it doesn't surprise me that, a negative person who is like, browbeating his staff, they're not going to have earn those accolades like you did. They're not going to earn those awards like you did. So it's no wonder that I enjoy listening to you, hearing that, because then it makes sense. I connect the dots and I'm like, okay, Jim is the type of person that I thought he was, hearing that history, and that's the type of person I want to learn from and I want to listen to and I want to be around. And if we all made decisions like that, like, okay, let's control the circle that we're spending time with, shit, sky's the limit for people. But people make decisions to hang around with people who aren't don't have the right mindset, or they're more negative than they are positive. And it just sabotages everything. It
Yeah.
sabotages growth. So
Yeah. That kind of you struck a question in me when you're talking about on this topic, and I don't care if we're talking about, along the lines of elk hunting, because elk hunting takes a lot of, perseverance, and you really have to dig into yourself, and I don't care if you're talking about building a business or being on a sales team and achieving, goals that you set as far as like income goes or whatever it is in life, doing a podcast, whatever. Um, do you have a bead on like what gets into a person where, not to keep using that same analogy, but they come to this fork in the road where they can go down this road where it's like they're happy and content with mediocrity. Does that make sense?
mhm,
Like we all know somebody like that. We have an uncle or a friend or somebody that is just like, they're happy with whatever income they're making, and that, they don't have any drive to improve that or improve
mhm,
the circumstances in their marriage or improve the circumstances in their day job, or they're happy getting an elk once every 10 years kind of thing,
mhm,
versus the people that choose the other road. There's a guy named Weldon Long, and he's got this amazing story, man. He was in prison for like 7 years, and he got out of prison, and he had read what is that book? I'm going to totally draw a blank on that book. I've read it too, but Stephen Covey wrote it. And
Mm.
now I can't think of the
Oh
name of it.
yeah, highly
Um,
success. Something about highly
Seven
successful.
Habits of
Seven
Highly
habits.
Successful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he reads this book in prison, right? And at the same time, his dad dies while he's in prison. And just before his dad died of a heart attack, he was on the phone with him from prison, and he was kind of complaining about his circumstances. Woe is me. I'm in prison. I messed up, and here I am. And his dad says, "Well, at least you're still alive." And that struck him in this way where he thought, "Man, I'm in my 30s, and the best thing that my dad can say about me is that at least I'm still alive." And so he decided to change. He gets out of prison, starts this company. It grows it to like $20 million a year annually. It's this incredible story. And what he said in this seminar as I was in was, it's 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 easy to be highly successful. It's just a little bit easier not to be. Does that make sense? And so that's where I'm talking about, on that fork of the road where people are like, this is going to be the easiest way to my left, but if I take the right, uh, I'm going to see success on a much greater level, and it's just a little bit harder than taking that road to the left. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
But I mean, yeah. So you answered your own question there. It's like people take that fork because it's easier. And also they're not going to they're not going to have to defend their position. When you start making hard decisions and separating yourself, then people are going to question, what is this all about? Why are you so obsessed with this? And then you have to defend that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so to defend something, you have to believe in it. And it's much easier just to go with the flow, you don't ruffle any feathers, you're not challenging people. Because you know how it is. It's like, I was in construction for a long time. I wasn't doing the work for most of it. I was a superintendent, but you have the guys who want to like move up and work hard and earn better opportunities. Those are kiss asses.
Yeah.
They're fucking bootlickers.
Yeah.
And so what happens is most people don't do that. They stay on the crew. Like, no, and then they, talk shit about management. That's kind of what most people do.
Mm-hmm.
The guys who make that hard decision and say, yeah, I know you guys are going to judge me on this, but this is what I want to do. Those are the guys who keep winning. It's hard though. It's freaking hard
Yeah.
because you know how men are. It can be tough. And what I learned in leading, in the construction world anyway, you have learned a lot, I'm sure, leading in military and then also in sales. You translated that to sales, but it's these guys, if you believe in them, they'll pretty much do anything for you. If you care about them, they'll do anything for you. So all it takes is, yeah, they're going to have to make those tough decisions. But if they get one person to believe in them, man, it's empowering. And you know, that's how you, how you make a positive difference on other people, but also it impacts your life too, because who doesn't feel good by saying, hey, I believe in you?
Yeah.
You feel good by saying that to somebody else. Not only, of course, they're receiving it, but it feels good. It feels good to be positive.
Yeah. It
And
lifts both parties.
it does. And it's like that, I don't know. It's just a weird, maybe humans are just always like that. But, I've been intentional about who I spend time with. And those are the type of people I spend time with. And then my life has been positively impacted by them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that, I don't know. It goes towards, you could tell a lot just about somebody's mindset from the people that they look up to. Like I look up to guys like you. I think that it's good from the hunting standpoint too. A big focus on this show is looking at the future of hunting and protecting the future of hunting and being aware and countering this anti-hunting movement and a lot of this where it derives out of um these places where people just get so hung up on emotions and anyway, I won't go down that rabbit trail, but
Yeah.
the it takes a lot to be a successful hunter. And I since this I suppose since this is School of September, we should start talking a little bit about elk. But all of that ties together, and I've said that multiple times from a lot of recent discussions we've had. This all ties together. It all ties together. If we're dealing with the woke left, right? Where if we're dealing with the anti-hunting movement, where if we're dealing with hunting regulations being passed by legislators versus commissions, or commissions ignoring biologists. All these things kind of tie together in a sense. And so, man, I totally got off track there, what I was talking about, but
Yeah.
um,
Well, that's, I mean, in speaking of that, we talk about social media and we talk about how to have to protect the future of hunting. I think we don't need everybody to hunt. I mean,
yeah.
we can't sustain that, but we need everybody to understand hunting. So with social media, my page gets out to a lot of people, mostly non-hunters. So what I post, I better make sure that it's not hurting hunting. It's explaining what we do and why we do it. And, to, to me, that's making advocates for hunting. And I'm not making more hunters. Sure, some will hunt because I think men who have went through life, their whole life, and now they see this hunting lifestyle, because it used to be that the only people that would see what we were doing is other hunters, Outdoor
Mm-hmm.
Channel, that's catering to other hunters, hunting magazines, no anti-hunters are buying Outdoor Life. So, or subscribing to Eastman's Journal, which I know is one of your sponsors. So it's like we do a really good job of preaching to the choir. But now, because of social media, now we have to think about, let's make advocates for hunting. Not, I mean, yeah, there's going to be like whatever 13, 14 million hunters, and that people will say that, hunting hasn't dropped. That's, it's stayed steady this whole time, ups and downs. It's like, yeah, that's true. But also if we had 13 or 14 million hunters 40 years ago, and we have that same amount now, well, the population of the United States is much bigger than it was. So our percentage of influence is much smaller.
Yeah.
And I just think that social media gives us a great opportunity to educate people on our lifestyle and why it's important, and maybe help them understand, maybe help them think about when they're, ordering a steak at a restaurant, that was a life. So it's yeah, all the things you mentioned are critical. The politics of it, then we have politics within hunting, as it is, people saying there's too many hunters. And so I understand it all, but I think the key is that we just educate people who might be on the fence about hunting, and it's always a positive.
That I love that point, because you have two, what I call the two greater factions. You have the anti-hunting movement, and then you have the actual dedicated hunter. I'm not talking about the guy that gets a deer tag every few years and spends a weekend on the mountain or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's I'm talking about the people that get tags every year. These are dedicated
Mm-hmm.
hunters. They spend a lot of money. They spend a lot of time. They're involved. They listen to hunting podcasts in February. Those kind of
Yeah.
folks. And you're right. It's that 90 some odd percent of the population in between, where we can really, and social media can do great things, and social media could do really bad things. And one of the things that has been like a net positive for hunting are platforms like yours, that have all these followers. Like the people that follow this show, Cam, they're all hunters. I don't have people really outside of hunting, except for maybe my aunt and my mom will listen,
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for the most part, these are all dedicated hunters. They're out there every year. So I don't reach those kind of people, but I'd like to, because that message that we can deliver to the non-hunter is going to be critical going forward. That's why I'm a huge advocate for um you have a positive influence on the non-hunter. Joe Rogan has a positive influence on the non-hunter. Steven Ranella is really good at reaching the non-hunter. These are people that when they see it, they're not seeing some, and don't anybody take this wrong, because I used to be this guy, but the hillbilly in a flannel shirt with a Coors Light waylaying deer from the truck, that's that negative connotation that was real prevalent back in like the 80s and 90s, and we're able to take that message and shift it to no, look, hunting is not just a fantastic conservation tool. It's also extremely healthy. It's a good way for, especially for men, to connect with what is this primal wild thing within us that we're born with,
Mhm.
and so that because I'm like you, I don't think we need more hunters. We just need the public support. And
Yeah.
I want to ask you something that you said when you're talking about social media, and this is always a touchy thing because like who are we to decide who's going to make this rule, who's going to decide, but having the conversation is really important. That's how we kind of get to this point where we can all agree on at least a bucket of rules that are unspoken, unwritten, that we can all agree to, and if we don't, we get called out, right? But what do you feel like is appropriate versus inappropriate to post on social media, especially when you know you have non-hunters? Um,
Mhm.
do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's people who haven't been around hunting like we have our whole life, and it's, it can be shocking to them to see, and especially like the grip and grins. Of course, I've used to be, when I first started off, I didn't want to smile. I thought I was going to be like, there's this guy, Miles Keller. He was an old bow hunter back in when I first started. And, and Nate Simmons is classic for this. I love Nate, but he doesn't smile too, which is fine. But point is, it's like, uh, then I went to where, okay, big smile, like Chuck Adams type thing. Cause I was influenced by other people. Everybody is, right?
Yeah.
Well, now I'm to a place where a non-hunter, when they see a dead animal and some guy's smiling, it's really hard for them to understand that. And for us, we're like, there's a lot of guys who'll say, "Oh, fuck them. What whatever. I don't care what people think. I'm going to do what I want. I'm happy. I'm going to post this picture and I'm smiling, and that's just the way it goes." I think it'd be better if we thought about what we're putting out there. And so I'm to a place now because I don't put up a lot of grip and grins, I mean, and when I do, I'll build up to it. Like I'll explain, you know, the hunt, the country, the animals, the people I'm with, kind of take them on the journey, show them the meat, show them processing the meat, packing it out, this whole everything. And then maybe at the end of all that, so it might be, I mean, there's some animals I've killed recently. I've never even put up a kill shot because
Yeah, me too.
it's, you think about it and it's like, to us, that used to be, we'd get one shot, like at the brag board down at the bow shop.
Yep.
That's a picture. You can't tell a fucking story down there. But now, so that was the chance we had to show our success. Now it's just like, what we put up or what I put up is truly what is important to me. It used to be like I didn't have another opportunity to explain it, so I put the picture up. Well, now I can explain that no, it was this incredible country, or it was, if I hunt San Carlos, it was the Apache tribe. It's like what I learned from them, and that how that culture has impacted me. And yes, I did kill a bull, but that was just doing what I do. What I learned with all these people and all these experiences, that was the true reward. And it sounds cliche. And there's hunters will say, whatever, we only hunt to kill and you should be happy when you kill. And I get it, whatever. I'm not arguing with that, but I'm just at my older age now and been around, been bow hunting for 35 years. I know truly how I feel. And it's that the experiences are what I cherish most. I mean, yes, I kill because that's what I work every day to do. And that's what makes me a bow hunter and not a hiker or camper. So I am going to kill an animal and I am going to eat every ounce of it. But there's more to it than just that kill. And so to for me to answer your question, in my opinion, I think social media, we do a disservice to other hunters and the future of hunting by not explaining that properly, or
Yeah.
taking time to be intentional about what we're putting up. Think about it. Think about that. I mean, I like your call out to your aunt, and I don't know if you said your mom, but
Yeah.
there's two things there. I like that you're thinking about them, so that's probably impacting maybe how you conduct yourself on here. But I also like that they're supporting you by listening, because there's so many people who have these big dreams and goals and they don't even have the support of the family, and
Oh
that
yeah.
makes it tough.
Yep.
And, you know, I was there too. So when you said that, I liked it for two reasons: that you're getting, you're thinking about that it's not just all redneck hunters like us. That's what we are, at our core. But it's also that they support you. And so anyway, that's what I think about social media. I mean, it's a slippery slope. It's I don't know. I didn't really ever anticipate being in this position to have to think about stuff like this. But here we are. And, hunting is at a crossroads because they do want to, the powers that be don't like people like us, people like who are self-sufficient and confident and don't need handouts from the government. So we're pretty much the enemy because they want people they can control. And I think I mentioned this on Rogan with Brunella, but it's we are the enemy. They won't say it, but
Yeah.
people like
No.
us are the enemy. We can't be controlled.
Yeah.
We're not afraid. And so it's an important time for hunters. We have to protect this, not only just for hunting, just for being strong, capable providers.
Yep.
And so hunting is how we do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, yeah, I did the same kind of thing, man, where recently and I don't have anything personally, specifically wrong with a grip and grin, but it's like I have reasons why I haven't posted them in the past. Like for example, one of my daughters hit one kind of in the face. It was a deer, and it was a pretty bloody scene. And as much as I want to show off the fact that my daughter was successful, and this was not a bow hunt, but they do have bows now. So I've got this little 3D range I'm setting up on my property here. It's going to be so much fun.
How old are they?
Now they are 13 and almost 15. So this was one last year. She got him. And anyway, the point is like what you were talking about. There would be no story leading up to how that deer died. There would just be this picture of me, her, and this deer, this little buck that had this really bloody face. And to somebody like somebody's aunt or somebody's mom that doesn't see that and experience that, they don't know how to take the savagery out of that because they don't know the hard work that went into that. I think that there's this perception, and Hollywood hasn't helped. And some of the messaging and the propagated information that we're getting from some of these anti-hunting organizations, they don't help. They make it seem like these animals are perfectly helpless, and we're just walking around killing everything we see. And you remember Bambi, where they're just like shooting at everything going by,
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah, I mean,
that's a perception.
I've seen a lot of movies where it's not a cartoon where the hunters are the bad guys. I mean,
Oh
and
yeah,
they're always the rednecks, the dipshits, and those are hunters. So that's, you talk about that propaganda. That's part of it, where
yeah,
they're trying to dismiss the hunter. And also it's like I can't remember where I heard this now. I think it was on another podcast, but in Colorado, when you talk about the wolves, like there were schools who named the wolves, right? The
yeah.
five, how many wolves they let out, but they named them. And I can't remember who it was, but it was a pretty good analogy that, why don't they name all the deer and elk those wolves are going to kill,
Yeah.
because now they're cheering on these wolves and like forming this fake connection with them, like they're a pet, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
ruthless killers. I mean, they're just doing what, I'm not talking shit on wolves. They're just doing what they do. And that's how it works. But they are going to kill a lot of deer and elk that I don't think these schools, when they're naming these wolves, are explaining to the kids. So it makes, if it ever gets to a point where all of a sudden these wolves could be hunted, which it won't, because
It won't in Colorado. Yeah.
they act like that could happen once they're a manageable number. It'll never happen. But once they get to that, then if a hunter does kill whatever the wolf, white fang, whatever they named the wolf,
White fang.
and then a hunter
Little
kills
Bobby.
white fang, yeah, then the hunter's the bad guy, and then that puts the crosshairs back on people like us. So it's like it's not a positive the way this works and the way we're portrayed. So I think it's super critical that we're not also shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
And this is like a tangent, but so we talk about making good decisions and like what an anti-hunter would think. These fringe groups of hunters who are also talking shit about fellow hunters, if an anti-hunter stumbles on that, they'll be like, holy shit, these guys, they fucking fight amongst each other. How I don't even know who to support or what's going on.
Yeah.
These guys doesn't even make sense. If we're just all united and saying, here's why we hunt, here's why it's important, you know, and we're all this sharing the same voice, that's one thing. But
Yeah.
when we can't even come together enough to do that, man, it'd be a tough road.
That's been the I don't know, the crux of our future is kind of is going to be held by that exact topic, man. When we have when we get people get so fighting mad, on social media over caliber choices, over
Yeah.
broadhead choices, over
How much weight do
how
you pull on
much
your bow?
yeah,
It's just
how
like,
much weight and how far are you shooting, and
yeah,
like
exactly.
what's ethical to me might not be ethical to you, and my values are more important than your values. It's the same kind of thing. We have obviously hunters have a lot of fight in them, and that's a good thing if it's going to the right place. And that's the
Yeah.
problem lately is it hasn't been going to the right place. And to your point, the anti-hunting industry, they've picked up on that. They already know that hunters we are greatly divided in a lot of, and they use that against us. And I think that yeah, it's been like this transition lately where I feel like the hunting community is starting on a much broader scale to recognize that. And I feel like it might be coming. There's still a lot of assholes out there that like they can get away with saying things because nobody's on the other side of the keyboard that can reach through and punch them in the lips, and they'll just say whatever the hell they want. But I feel like that it seems to me that it's calming down, and it seems to me that people are starting to recognize the fact that we have a much greater enemy, we have a much greater threat to our future as hunters than worrying about my neighbor using a 30-06 instead of a 6.5 Creedmoor, or name your broadhead discussion. It's
Yeah.
just so it's getting crazy. Anyway, we should probably transition to people are going to tune into this to want to talk about how Cam Haines finds an elk, man.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand. It's yeah, elk hunting has been I grew up just in blacktail country where I live here in Western Oregon. And, because of that, then that's Roosevelt elk hunting is what I grew up hunting. But everybody kind of dreams of the big mountain adventures. And, these were logging roads and logging country here. So we couldn't really get out, get deep like we wanted. Well, it wasn't even like we wanted to. It was like all we cared about. This was me and my buddy Roy back in the day, was getting
Yeah.
away from people. And that's why we started bow hunting originally. It was less people, more
Mm-hmm.
animals, less competition. So then, that led us to the wilderness. And we thought, well, if we outwork everybody, then we're going to have an advantage. And all that kind of planted that seed into to killing a bull. Hopefully it's like, it's such a hard thing to do. But I was lucky enough to kill one local here, or like I killed bulls local for probably, I think, 7 years, and then went to the wilderness and finally killed a bull. And then it's like, man, that was like, I just dreamed about killing a big 6 point. Everybody had, when you see a picture of a bull, it's a big 6 point. There's one right here on this lampshade.
Mm-hmm.
And actually that one has a split G5, it looks like. So it might be a 7x6. But anyway, the belt buckles, everybody, the big bull, right? So that was
Mm-hmm.
my obsession, is how can I kill a big bull? And it took me, in my 8th season, I killed smaller bulls, but I finally killed one. And then like once you become obsessed with something like that, then it's like every decision, or for me, every decision I made was, how can I do this every year? Because I didn't even know about hunting out of state back then. I didn't know anybody who even hunted out of state, really. So how could I kill a big bull every year? And then it's like, oh man, Nate, I remember Nate wrote an article when I was editor at Eastman's, and he killed 3 bulls. I think he killed 2 in Idaho when they wouldn't sell out, you could buy another non-resident tag. So he killed 1
Yeah.
in Oregon, 2 in Idaho. And I was just like, God dang, you can kill 3 bulls. And it's like, how could it get better? You could just keep elk hunting. And so that was, when you're obsessed with something, it's all you think about every day, and everything you do plays into that obsession. So that's been my life for 35 years.
Yeah, and it's been so fun to watch, man. You always have great videos, you have great content, and obviously, for anybody that doesn't know, there isn't a season that goes by where Cam isn't getting at least one bull, right? So
Yeah, I've been
so
lucky.
for by the way, for anybody just tuning in, maybe this is your first School of September. The idea with School of September is really simple. I look at the School of September as like this mental toolbox where I bring in guys that are way better at elk hunting than I am, and I pick their brain about how to locate, close with, and get an arrow into a bull. We do talk a little bit about cow elk hunting. We'll talk a little bit about rifle hunting. That's more later in the season, that kind of stuff. But the real focus is for those of us that are really enthusiastic about hunting elk in September, while they're rutting, whether you're a caller, whether you're a spot and stock guy. But that's the idea of these kind of episodes. So, Cam, the 3 things that I always try to get on these kind of episodes: how to locate elk, both from the standpoint of if you're going into a new area, maybe doing some scouting, e-scouting, or whatever you want to do, and then once you get on the ground, how you find them, and then 2, how do you once you find them, for me, I can usually locate a bull and say it's 500 yards. I want to know your process of how to close that, get that bull within bow range. And then 3 is a really important one. This is something I personally have struggled with, especially the last couple of years, is setups. I've flung some arrows off some branches and shot right underneath them or right over them, and it is a real buster to my confidence. And
Yeah.
so those are kind of the 3 things that I wanted to focus on. But I always
Hmm.
start with the question, as Cam Hanes sees it, when you're kind of looking out there at the vastness of all the different elk hunters out there, what is the biggest mistake you see elk hunters make that leads to them not having a notch tag at the end of the season?
I think it's time. That the number one thing a bow hunter can put on the site is time. And there's another saying that time is the bow hunter's best friend. It's just going to take time out there. I mean, when I first started hunting the wilderness, Roy moved to Alaska, so I was on my own. I knew that I wasn't that good. I would have to cover miles. When you talk about locating elk, that's pretty easy to narrow down where they might be. Whether they're there or not, I don't know, but they're going to need water, cover, and feed. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's any animal, but elk are big animals. So they need, a lot of all those things, cover, not so much, but I mean, they need a lot of water and feed. They'll be hitting water every day. And, where I was, that all depended on the moisture content from the year. Like if it was a dry year and the top got burnt up, they'd be on the chutes of the big canyons. If it was a wet year, and so they could go up at night and feed at the top of the meadow, then they'd be coming off the top at first light and heading back up. So it's like what the feed looked like played a big difference in where those elk would be in the wilderness. And then it was just a matter of, it's pretty, people talk about all the time, the north side timber is cool. And so they bed there a lot, but a lot of times they just want to get out of the sun. They want to get a flat place to lay down. So it's those benches. So I would just study my old school topo maps that I buy at REI here, and, tape them together and do all this for this whole thing. And then I would just be laying back there, and when I was in the wilderness, I'd just be looking at landmarks and benches and water and, doing all this. And so then once that was established where I, would want to check out, then it was just like covering more country than anybody else wanted to cover, and then finding the fresh elk sign. And then once I found the fresh elk sign, because I had my camp on my back, because I did biddy hunting, is I would just back out to where I thought I was far enough away, and then I'd be right there in the morning, or could hunt them whenever, or lay down during the middle of the day. And if a bull lights up, because they do all throughout the day, but most people aren't out there, they're back at camp or something. But if I was out there all the time, if I had more time to, or if I dedicated as much time, I never went on vacations. Didn't golf. I didn't fish. Every minute I had was for elk hunting. And so when I dedicated all my time to that, and then had this mindset that I don't know shit, I'm trying to learn. And every time I was in the mountains, I was learning. I was trying to figure out how these animals interacted with each other, how they survived, where they went, if they felt a little pressure, how far they'd go. All these little things that hunters, over decades, you just learn. But I didn't. I was trying to learn that at that time. So I'd go with the big things, and then it was just, can I outwork everybody, and how much time do I have? And I would need 10 opportunities back then when I first started to kill one bull. And
when you say that, Cam, the opportunities, what how do you define an opportunity? Is it just like an encounter, or you visually see a bull? How at what point does it become an opportunity?
like bow range, making a play on them,
Gotcha.
trying
Okay.
to, yeah. So sometimes I couldn't get within bow range of the bull. Maybe I was within bow range of the herd, and then they spooked. But I would count, that's like an opportunity. I screwed up. The wind shifted, or I let a cow see me, or who knows what. But I needed, now I feel like if I get one opportunity, I'm going to kill that bull.
Yeah.
But I've been doing it a long time. And back then, yeah, I just would screw up. Shoulder bladed bulls, I missed bulls, I ricocheted shit off limbs, the arrow off limbs. I would rush in crunch time. My adrenaline would spike. And that's just how it goes. I mean, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
Some people never get past that because they don't get those opportunities. Like where I said I needed 10 to kill one, those 10 opportunities might come in 5 years. So if you're only getting 2 opportunities a year, it's going to be a while till you kill, unless you are better than me or get lucky. And then it's hard to learn when it's so spread out, because you got, 51 weeks of life,
Yeah.
the whole year, in 1 week of elk hunting. And what you learned, it takes a couple days to like get back out and get in the groove. And, once you've come from society to the mountains. So it's like that learning curve is just way extended. And, so I don't know how many of those questions I answered on what you do at the School of September, but, yeah, it's, nowadays when I get to new country, I'm usually looking at, what's the water like that year? Do the elk have to come to water, or is there water spread around, which isn't going to concentrate movement? But the water also will play into what size of bulls I'm looking at, which before, and it was just like any decent 5-point I'm going to kill. And now I've, killed, a number of bulls. So now I'm like, just want an old mature bull. So it's like, those are the type of things I'm trying to figure out when I first get to a place.
Okay. Yeah, but to answer your question, that answered a lot of them. I want to dig a little bit deeper on a couple of points there. And you're going to have to bear with me. I've been talking about the stuff we started this conversation out all winter. So now I've got to get back into asking questions, elk hunting questions, and which I love. So, talking about, first of all, like I'll give you a great example. But I hunt a lot of North Idaho, West Montana, real thick, real brushy, it's real similar to what you were talking about, logging road type kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Over there in Oregon, in Western Oregon. Do you have, how much does your strategy change from hunting really thick, brushy, steep country versus hunting more open, not prairie, but more open country, a little drier country, so think of like the Southwest kind of thing, or places in like Wyoming. Is there like a huge strategy difference on your end when you do that?
Mm, I mean, obviously, more bigger country, you're just going to glass more, and maybe you won't have to put in the miles that you will, like in the North Idaho or here. It's you have to be either you have to be close to them to see the sign, to see the fresh sign, or you have to hear them. And Western Oregon, Roosevelt's don't call like Eastern Oregon. Eastern Oregon is a little bit better, where the sound will carry more, the timber doesn't suck it up. I would say North Idaho, it's you'd have to probably be closer because of the timber to hear
Yeah.
them, and then also you have to come across fresh sign because you're not allowed or not able to glass big expanses. Um, so yeah, it definitely changes. When I would hunt here back in the day, like for where I couldn't glass, it would be like, in logging units, you have to get there in prime time to as many logging units as you can, as fast as you can, because the elk are being, melt into the timber. Well, they're out for like, an hour in the morning, maybe an hour before dark. And so it was like a time crunch. I got to make this
Mm,
happen. And then the mid part of the day would just be looking for sign, looking for fresh rubs, looking for, piss in the dirt where, it's like, if it's not dried up, it's not super old. So then it would just be like trying to locate activity. And elk are, they leave a lot of telltale sign because they're so big. And so, yeah, there's always going to be, there's always going to be little tells about if there's a herd there, if there's a bull there, if there's different things like that. So, yeah, in open country, I'm just going to glass more. I'm going to stay more towards the ridge tops, but, of course, never want to skylight myself. I'm sneaking around, not silhouetting, peeking into areas I can glass, and I'm always glassing the edges of the timber because that's where the animals are going to hang up before they go in or when they come out to
hmm.
check things out. So it's like there's strategy in all of it. I feel like I'm very methodical about how I go about it, and it's like a science to me a little bit. And I'm always like like looking at things like a math equation, and if I'm even when I'm getting close to an animal, I'm like, if I range the animal at 70 yards, that's I might have, just roughly say, a 70% chance of making a good arrow. If I'm at 69 yards, well, maybe it's a 71% chance. If I'm at 50 yards, maybe it's an 82% chance. So the closer I get, I'm just like running these numbers. And it's like, if I can one more step, it's just a fraction of a point that might help me make this shot. So
Hmm.
I'm always like trying to do all the little things to put the odds in my favor. That was just an example of shot distance, but there's so many little things you can do. And I hunt with a lot of people filming me or doing whatever. And I see people take like the little things, like if you're walking and one side of the brush is in the shade, one side is in the sun, always staying in the shade. So it's all these little decisions and just never losing focus, never kicking a rock, never, breaking sticks. It's like people, they let their guard down, and I try to never let my guard down. And, that's
So
like
you're
long winded.
so you're super stealthy, man. Because I know I think I know why, but like I don't care if I'm snapping sticks and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
just, but at the same time, I'm usually calling. What is your history with calling? What's do you? Was there a time when you ever were way into that, or?
No, no, because here, I mean, this elk country from here is like 15 miles outside of town. So you can
Uh,
imagine how many guys can drive 15 miles, right? And so everybody'd be calling. So if you wanted to try to kill a big Roosevelt, you wouldn't make a noise. And I was always, because of that, I stalked a lot. So I got really good at stalking animals. And, now I've hunted all over the world and pretty much just stalked. But with elk, I'm always, because that's how I grew up, I'm always, my mindset is if they don't know I'm here, I don't want to let them know I'm here. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say at least 90% of the bulls I've killed have been spot and stock. It's
okay.
just, or listen, or stock the bugle, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, because I want to talk about that because a lot of the times some of the guys that are listening, guys and gals that are listening to this episode, this might be their first elk season, right? And so can you kind of walk us through what you consider um fresh sign when you come across it? What are you experiencing to know that it's fresh sign? Because sometimes it can be hard to know if a rub is a week old or a year old, or sometimes the tracks it hasn't rained, so it's been that way. Obviously, elk sign, you find a pile of elk shit, and you can tell when it's fresh, right? Hopefully, we don't have to cover that part. It's the other stuff. Um, what does a really elk area look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of rubs. I mean, if there's bulls in the area and they're active, which is what you want, there's going to be a lot of rubs. And then wherever there are rubs, if the branches they broke off rubbing haven't died yet, I mean, that's a pretty good sign that it's not super old. So these little branches or limbs come off, and if they're still alive on the ground, and like I said earlier, the piss is wet, because they usually like will bed down on that bench like I talked about, or in the shade somewhere, and when they get up they'll piss, and then you can like look at a bed and see if it's a cow it might be pissing out the back. If it's a bull it's more towards the center of the bed. The tracks, of course, those bull tracks are usually pretty. A big bull track is pretty easy to distinguish from a cow track. You got to be careful if there's cattle in the area, because a lot of these ranchers have grazing rights, and so a cow can look like, or a big bull can look like a cow in some cases. So it's but you get pretty good at looking at and distinguishing between a bull and a cow, or a bull and a beef cow. But then it's just the sharpness of the track, and it's just are they kicking stuff up to where it's still wet where they scuffed in the dry dirt. It's just like a lot of little things, but all these little things. It's like that's what I say with the time. Is you don't learn any of this shit overnight. I mean, you got to be out there. You got to be out there and be, and also this is where the time comes in, because you can't be distracted. You have to be like, I'm intentional. I'm learning. I want to be like almost like a biologist out there trying to decipher what all this means, and how the herd's reacting, and what type of bull might be running this herd, and is there satellite bulls, and it's like this all takes like it takes you have to be intentional about it. I don't think guys are intentional enough. They're out there, and if they don't see, they glass across a canyon, and a few, there might be a basin they can see, or maybe some water. And if they don't see elk there, they're like, well, this place sucks. And, they're kind of turning off that opportunity to learn, and maybe break down what's going on with the animals in the country. So the biggest thing for me is I try to learn every day,
Yeah.
not even every day, every hunt I'm out. It's just intentional about, I need to get better at this. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little things. When you have that mindset, I think, to answer your question, when you have that mindset and then you put the time in, and before that was scouting, I was kind of intimidated to go and scout for, 4 or 5 days by myself. So I would just bomb all the way over 8 hours, pack all the way in, stay a night, try to learn what I could, get a little tougher, get more comfortable in the wilderness, and then I'd come home and go back to work. So but during those trips, it was always like on this quest to be the best elk hunter I could be.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the time thing too, because I'll get a bunch of messages, and they'll be like, "Hey, I'm going to so and so unit, whatever, and I hoping for some advice, kind of thing." And my first
Mm-hmm.
question is always, "How much time are you planning to spend?" And the guys that are like, I'm coming in Friday and leaving Sunday, and then I'm hoping to get back for at least one more weekend. Okay, man, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but your odds of getting a bull are
Yeah.
like literally they're almost zero. Unless you're Cam Haynes or Brian Barney.
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um and then but the guys that are like, well, I'm coming for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Time is the key. Time is the key.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you're a caller or a spot and stock guy, or I have a buddy, man, that he sits in like a whitetail tree stand. I've never sat in a tree stand before. He sits in a
Mhm.
tree stand with his trad bow, and he'll just sit a trail, and he gets bulls like almost every year.
Yeah.
And that's what he does in North Idaho. And that time thing, I think, is the key because he spends a lot of time in that tree stand.
Right.
I lose my shit sitting in a tree stand that long. So, um, there was another thing you mentioned too, that really struck me from a sense of you've got the time and being committed and being what was the word you used, Cam?
Intentional.
Intentional about what you're doing and like aware while you're out there. So many guys, a couple of years ago, I had found it was interesting because, we all talk about how elk like to bed down on like a north or an east slope, face, whatnot, to get out of the heat. I found I have this mountain and I've hunted this mountain a lot. It's actually south facing, and but it's real thick dark timber, and the bulls love
Hmm.
hanging out over there. Every September, they're only there in September. And so, anyways, I'm sitting on this like it was like this choke point where these trails came in, all these elk trails came in, and I'm sitting in the brush, and I had been calling and I hadn't been getting responses. So when that happens, I just sit down and I shut up and I just listen, and I'm very intentional, to use your word, about what's going on around me, and I'm always aware, right? And this guy, this bow hunter, he comes trucking down one of the trails, and he's loud as fuck. It just sounds like a freight train coming through there. And he's not paying attention to anything around. He walks right past me, probably 15 feet in front of me. Never knew I was there. I sat there, and I kid you not, it was like 12 minutes later, uh, a spike and a little, like, just baby raghorn. I mean, barely even able to call it a raghorn. Goes walking on
Hmm.
exactly this guy's trail, and
Yeah.
I think about stuff like that where you think that if you walk through an area, right, and you feel like you've covered that country, there's no elk there. They've been
Yeah.
abducted by aliens and they're gone, and you've got to move to the next drainage or whatever. That's not always the case, I found. And these animals, they live there full time and they're way more keyed into their environment than we are. And so just improving our awareness on the mountain and understanding that um your one pass through in an area is not necessarily going to be the answer, or is not going to answer the question of whether or not there's elk there, because they will be coming through. I
Hmm.
don't know. What are your thoughts on that in terms of just having that awareness of your surroundings, and how that ties into a spot and stock style hunt versus calling?
Yeah. I mean, it's spot and stock versus calling. I li- I like it better. I think elk are pretty easy to stalk, much easier than like a mule deer, because they are making so much noise and then they're so visible. Um, so that's why I feel like if you're decent at stalking, that's the way to do it. And also, I think calling, you have a harder time killing the real big bulls, which, now I've been like, you know, so lucky in life that now I can say that, oh, I want to look for an older bull, which I understand most guys are just, hey, I just want a bull. Any dead bull's a good bull. And I get that. But if you're trying to kill those big old bulls, calling them is going to be tough because they
Yeah.
usually got the cows. And and so they don't need to be coming to a call. I mean, if they're wound up, yeah, of course they'll come into a cow call probably. But I would just rather not do anything. And I think that's the best way. If the bull's lighting up on his own, definitely the best way to kill a big bull, a big old bull that's been around for 10 years, So to me, that's a big part for the big bulls for stalking. Um, yeah, I mean, of course, we know the wind, and it's just picking the right time to try to close in. Everybody, I think, pushes the luck on wind a little bit because by the time you find them in the morning, if you've had to travel from a base camp and then you find the elk, by the time that happens, you're going to be mid morning, which that's when the thermals are going to be switching. And if you're trying to make it happen at that time, it's not usually the best, because you're going to get in close in the wind because they're unstable. It's going to give you up, and maybe not give you up to the bull, but all it takes is a cow smelling you.
Yeah.
and they'll take the whole herd. So it's just like uh, being tactical about how you're going to get close and when you're going to get close and letting that wind stabilize. Because if you would, you know, I've killed bulls in midday, even with a herd, by knowing where the bull was in relation to the herd and then circling and coming where he was the closest animal or the um, first animal I'm going to come across on that stalk. So I've done it before. It's tough. It's tough to
Mhm.
stalk a herd of elk, but sometimes if that bull's in a place where he's left himself vulnerable from a certain direction and the wind is holds true because it's middle of the day when it has kind of stabilized and should be going up because it's warm. um, I've killed plenty of bulls doing that. It's mostly just every situation. I'm not making assumptions on here's what they're going to do. Anybody who says, you know, here's what you always do, this, and this, and they got these rules they go by and they know it's going to happen this way. I never say that. I never know. I look at every situation individually, every bull individually, and how I'm gonna attack that hunt and is like its own, um, just its own unique strategy. And
Mhm.
that has allowed me to be successful just by not making assumptions, and then, as I said, learning all the time, and then also just making good decisions on when I'm going to close in.
You got time for one more question on this?
Yeah,
I know I promised you an hour, and I'm trying to. I'm a little past
it's
that.
all
So
good.
okay.
I'm going on a run here, but I like when it gets warm. So I'm going
Is
to
it
run
as
over the mountain.
is it as nice over there as it is? Like it is 55 degrees total sun today, and Cam, like I have in this part of Montana, we'll go 2 months without seeing the sun in the winter, and so it is like the most glorious day that we've had for a long time. Is it pretty nice over
Yeah,
there too?
yeah. Today's going to be 71,
Oh,
which is
man,
crazy.
sweet.
Yeah, so yeah, so it'll be nice. And they had excuse me, they had the mountain I normally run has been closed down because we had this big ice storm. So they had trees all over. So
Oh
I had to
wow.
run across town to this other mountain, and now the local one, the Pisgah, is going to be open. It opened yesterday, so I'm going to do a run from here in the hopefully in the afternoon warmth. And yeah, so
Right on.
I got time. It's not
Sweet.
we're still good.
Okay. Well, I won't keep you too much longer, but I want to ask I want to talk about setups for a minute. And what I mean is when for and this is both for the question and for those of you listening, what we mean by setup, especially if you're brand new to elk hunting, setup is kind of that spot where you plant your feet and you draw your bow. And that's what I mean by a setup. We are set up. Our bow is drawn. We've positioned ourselves. You heard Cam mention earlier. If you've got two choices to walk through, a sunny slope versus a shaded slope, always stay in the shade. When you're setting up, one of the biggest bulls that broke my heart was because I was standing in the sun, where if I would have been 2 feet over, I would have been in the shade, and he probably wouldn't have seen me. So failure is where I learned, Cam, and I'm really good at failing. Um, so what we're talking about was setup. I'm curious about. For me, I've made so many setup mistakes, man. Like I said, like I just mentioned, setting up in the sun, setting up behind a tree, thinking that they would kind of hide me, versus in front of it. I don't know. Everybody says to set up in front of it. That's what I do now. It seems to work better, but I don't know. Setting up where I can shift and adjust my shot angle left and right, up and down, whatever. Shooting lanes. I that's kind of where I want to get your take. How do you set yourself up to where you're physically standing, and what do you look for in a shooting lane?
Um, yeah, people, I do, like I said, everything I do is intentional. Like even when I shoot through my truck window, I have my door open, the window down. I shoot through that, and yeah, it's fun.
It's
It's just
so
kind of
awesome.
fucking around, but it's also I need to understand that trajectory of that arrow at different distances. So I've shot through my truck at 85 yards. Out here in the driveway, it's like 40 yards. But the point is, it's like those make me think about what my arrow's doing, right? A lot of guys, they think that if they have line of sight to the bull, they're good to go. And that's just not the case. That your arrow, depending on the distances and the speed of your bow, the arrow is going to be up in a bunch of shit up there if it's there's timber.
Yep.
So just being intentional about, hey, what am I practicing? What am I thinking about? And then that translates into the hunt because you've been going through this in your practice, right? So it's just another part of the thing that you look at. But I remember an example. It was this past season when I was in Utah. Of course, it's a great elk hunting place, so people can talk shit about that, and that's fine. But
People
I
talk
was
shit
there,
about
and
hunting in Utah. I grew up in
well,
Utah, so.
just where I hunt because it's good
Oh
elk
God.
hunting.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I got
Yeah,
you.
the must be nice, which
Yeah.
is
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
nice.
I'll bet it
Yeah,
is. I'd
yeah,
love to do that shit, man. It's awesome.
it's very very nice. But so anyway, I was there, and I usually take my younger son there to film. It's like kind of he lives in Utah now, so we get to spend a little like a week in the mountains. And then I had Rihanna, who works for me. She was there too. She's pretty good at running a camera. True is not that good at running a camera, but I like spending time with him. So we were there, and this bull was lighting up, and wind was pretty good. It's coming up, and so I had three of us now. I had to try to get close to this bull, and I wasn't saying anything, but he was working his way on his own, which is perfect. You can just kind of get set up in a way that makes sense. The way where he was coming kind of side hill, but he was going to come through the saddle. There's some big timber right there. Everything looked good. Most people, I think, and I don't know, but I'm just telling you what I did. A lot of people, we were on the trail, would have stepped right off the trail right there, and then that bull would have come the way he was coming, and it would have been like a frontal. Would have been it's Utah's kind of open, so you probably would have he would have saw something at maybe 40 yards, 35 yards, I would say out of place, even if you weren't moving, just because they live there every day. They
Mm-hmm.
know when things look weird or not. So in 40, 35 yards, it would have been a frontal opportunity, which isn't a great opportunity. And who knows what would have happened. But I thought in my head, and like he was coming pretty quick. I made all these decisions really quick. So I had everybody backtrack, circle around. Here's the trail here. Here's that timber I talked about. Slightly uphill, this bull's coming this way right to us. So I backtracked, got around, and then got 30 yards off of the path I thought that bull was coming, 30 yards in the shadow, and set up and kneel. So kneeling is a big, big key. They're so used to seeing that human silhouette and being spooked. But if you're on your knees, you can get away with so much more. So everybody down. I'm always telling everybody, keep your hat bill pulled down and look down. Don't, a lot of people they want to look and they're like this. Well, their heads up, their hat bill's up, the sun's on their face, it's bright white face. So Truett has a white face and he wears his hat kind of back. So I'm like, keep your head down, stay on your knees. And this bull came in, and the bull came into I think 23 yards, and he was just like a regular 6x6. So I didn't end up killing him, but we got kind of cool footage of him. But point is, if I would have wanted to kill him, and he sounded like a pretty good bull, but he wasn't what I was thinking, but he would have been dead. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I came to full draw just to practice. Is another thing that I do is just go through the process, put that pin on them, and yeah, I mean, I got a tag if I fuck up and hit the trigger and kill that bull. That's just the way it goes. But I do take opportunity just to it's different when an animal's there and you're drawing your bow back, what you can get away with, what you can't. Could you kill that bull? All these little things, so much shit has to go right. So I pulled back that bow, put the pin right on his crease, just practicing. If I was going to shoot, I would have come a few inches back from the crease. But point is like that whole scenario, I learned so much even without a kill, and also at
Yeah.
the same time taught Rihanna and Truett what to do when a bull's coming in like this, and so many people think they don't have time to You don't want to move and get busted, but just making that call on, do I have enough time to get in a better position? So all that, to answer your question, it's a long-winded fucking answer. Sorry, but
No,
it's
that's
like
good. It's good stuff.
all that comes with reps being there, because if you're not around bulls very often, it's hard to learn all that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's and so hopefully examples like us talking about it, you know, of course your listeners can't be there, but maybe just consciously think about that, and maybe it'll help somebody on the next opportunity think about, how best to set up, and I should get on my knees, and I want to make sure not to, have my face up in the sun, and be in the shadows, and then, be intentional about where I'm setting up. So hopefully it can help some of your listeners.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, any of that kind of information helps, and I love the fact that you pointed out how much you learn just by watching that bull. That's one of my biggest things that I'd like to tell people. Just if there is a way for you to be around elk, and I don't care if it's, and I think I've said this before on the podcast, in Post Falls, Idaho, there's this little elk farm, right? And you can go feed these elk carrots from the road. All right. Now I don't know what I actually don't even know what these people do with these elk. But there's like 7 or 8 bulls. One of them's just a big sucker, man. But
Let them out to where I hunt.
That's what everybody's gonna claim, right?
People love talking. Oh, high fence. Shut the fuck up. But anyway, no.
Well,
joking.
that ties into Cam. Like we have this greater enemy. Who gives a fuck about high fence, low fence, public land, all this kind of stuff? It's like we all have this greater enemy. Who cares? We, at the end of the day, we're going for a freezer full of elk meat and some antlers on the wall,
right.
man.
That's
so, but
I was joking, but yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if people have an opportunity, go sit with those elk outside of the, because you just pull right up on the road, and there you can see all these bulls on the one side. There's a couple cows over there, and especially in like August when they're starting to get a little bit frisky, if you will.
Yeah.
But they're very talkative. But I didn't see. This is where I learned. This was years ago. I was feeding these elk carrots, and this is where I learned that a big 350 class bull will sound just like a cow when he mews. I mean, meow, just like, and that meant he wanted a carrot. He wanted me to give him a carrot. And so it's just if you can expose yourself and be around these elk in any way, whether it is at a place like that, or if you get into the mountains, or for you folks down in Colorado, like Estes Park, and just exposure to these animals to see what they do. My wife came out and left the door cracked, and that contractor's in there with a sawzall. So hopefully it's not picking all that up.
I don't hear it.
Okay, good. Anyway, it's just it's a big deal if you can get around elk in any way and expose yourself to what they do, how they behave, how they communicate with each other. Man, it'll change your life in the elk woods. What were you going to say there? And I cut you off there.
God, no, I don't.
Was
know.
it the high fence stuff?
Yeah, that was just. I saw. I think. Yeah, I don't know. Dipshits say a lot of crazy stuff, but yeah, I mean, I've never had anything but wild elk. But anyway, I think to your point is the more you can be around, and I've done this with bear too. Like I've taken a lot of people on their first bear hunt. And I like going up with John and Jen Rivet up in Alberta just because, I saw 50 bear last year. Only one was a bear I wanted to kill, but all that experience around them, it's just like it makes you comfortable, because if you never see a bear, or let's talk about bulls, because this is the school September.
No, yeah, it applies though. I love the bear topic because it does apply.
Yeah, if you're never close to that animal, how do you think you're gonna perform the first time a big bear or a big bull comes in? You're probably gonna shit the bed. You know what I mean? Because you haven't.
Yeah.
How can your body's not prepared for it? I mean, this is a big adrenaline dump. This is a lot going on here. If we've been thinking about killing a bull for all year or maybe multiple years, because you're the average guy, you kill one every 10 years. How do you think you're going to perform when a giant comes stomping in? It's probably not going to be perfect. So to your point, like being just around animals or around the bears or around just out scouting around and just learning that behavior, like you said, that bull would mew just like a cow would, but and that's kind of a unique experience on a captive elk. But you can learn body language. You can, if you're out in the wild taking pictures, like I used to always do when I was young. I would
Yeah.
just be out there all the time, and I was learning about how they interact with each other, how just the ins and outs of the species.
Hmm.
And when you know that, you're just more comfortable when it comes down to I'm going to try to kill this thing now. It's
Yeah.
it's not rocket science.
It's really
It's like,
not. I
oh
love the point. Even if you have like I have cell cams all over my property, right? And the elk will come through my property and I can watch them interact with each other. And I can watch how that one lead cow is the boss and the other calves won't even mess with her and the other it's you can learn a lot just from that alone. And to your point of bears, man, I hunt. I've hunted a lot of bears over a bait barrel, and that way I can watch all these little bears and wait for that big sucker to come in. But I learn a lot about bears by doing that, and it's made me a better bear hunter for spot and stock. And so yeah, it's a great point, man. Exposure to this stuff
yeah,
exposure to this stuff like outside of YouTube is huge. And not you can learn a lot on YouTube, but it's
yeah,
it's that real life exposure to these animals, their habitat, their environment, behavioral stuff. I don't know. I feel like what you could put between your ears is so much more beneficial to especially a brand new hunter than the newest $800 pack or the whatever name your gear that came out. It's the knowledge that you can gain, and that's why I do these podcasts, man. So
yeah.
cool, great
I think,
information.
yeah, I think if I was we're gonna wrap it up. I'll leave with one thing. And are we still recording?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, I thought you saw you getting ready to take your
Oh
thing
no,
off.
I hit the wire and so I only get sound out
Oh,
of one headphone. I need to quit being a cheap ass and buy some new headphones, man.
okay, no worries. I was gonna wrap up with was just make sure that the thoughts you're having about elk hunting and the visualizations you make are positive ones, because we can there are self-fulfilling prophecies. So if you're thinking about, oh, I'm going to hit this bull in the shoulder blade, you probably will hit that fucker in the shoulder blade. If
Mm,
you think about it and
great point.
if you're watching that arrow hit perfect, right, 3 inches behind the shoulder, perfect height, and you just over and over and over, that's what you're seeing, and then that's what you're practicing, and it's so powerful. It's like, I think people think about, they're I know I'm going to screw this up. I know I'm going to screw this up. And then they do. So I just, again, it's the mind. It's not rocket science. This is very simple. But if I don't want to belabor the point, but if we're consistent in our effort, we're intentional in our what the goals are, and then we're also putting those positive thoughts out there and not getting distracted by all this, oh, social media hunting is the worst thing for our future. If we're not, just fucking ignore all that. Let's focus on what we're doing. What we're doing, we're trying to get a bull on the ground. Everything we do to prepare has to be positive, intentional, hard work related. Get those reps in, and man, I think it's going to pay off. But we sabotage ourselves, and I'm not immune to this. I've done this too, but I've fucked up for 35 years, so now I know kind of what works. And for me, just ending with that visualization piece has been helpful.
Super important point, and I'm such living proof of that, man. Like 2 years ago, in fact, it was this bull comes walking out, and it's just like not this difficult shot, man. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna miss this guy. Boom, that arrow flies right over his back, missed him, and I don't know why I thought that all of a sudden, and I kicked myself. I'm like, why did I even have that thought? I should have been focused on where that pin was, and
Yeah, it's
so
freaking
yeah,
hard.
it
It's hard.
is, man.
Bow hunting is hard. I mean, there's a shot this last season in San Carlos that I just, I feel like shit about, because this bull came out, and I stopped him with the mouth, like a cow call, like that. And he stopped. I thought perfect, but I think I was thinking about this. There's some brush on his left side. And
Mm-hmm.
I think subconsciously my brain told me to like, oh, stay away from the brush. So I had my pin over a little bit too far to the right and I shot and I thought I hit him good and it got just one lung and then a liver. And so the bull went up and I ended up having to go up and, after a while shoot him again. I didn't like him suffering up there. I didn't like that I'd fucked up. I should have, there's no excuse for me at 36 or 37 yards not to double lung him. And I just think that I was influenced by that situation with the brush and that my sight window. And I just got to be better at it. So now I'm very intentional about when I'm shooting, I'm focusing on where I want to hit only. And if I have a clear path to that, that's all I need to worry about. I don't,
Yeah.
and again, as I said, I've been doing this for a long time and I'm still learning how I can get better. And so I think just having that mindset, hey, this journey, this never ends. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
we never got it figured out. We can always get better.
I love that, man. I absolutely that's why you're such an inspiring guy. You'll never meet somebody that has achieved a high level of success at anything, elk hunting or otherwise, that doesn't have the mindset of I am always learning and I'm still open to learning more. It's the people that think that they fucking know everything that fail. And that's you can't that is not like theory. That's real. That is what it is. It's like, kind of like the sky is blue, especially today as I'm looking out the window. So,
Yeah.
well, cool, man. Tell everybody where I can you talk about the lift run shoot deal coming up in Austin and the truck giveaway? You've got all sorts of stuff. I can't even keep up with it all. And don't forget the book, and you read it. If you get the what do you call those? The ebook, right?
Yeah. An audiobook.
Yeah, I always want to call them book on tape, and all that does is ages me. So the
It's all
audio
good.
book.
Endure.
Endure what I really liked about that book with the way that you did that was like I could feel the important parts as you read that the fluctuation and the energy in your voice would change, and those really that's why I think it's great when like the author actually reads their book. So
Yeah.
anyway, tell everybody where they could find all that.
Yeah. I mean, just on my social media, pretty much it's, Cameron Haynes, but, this event, this lift run shoot, this is pretty cool because, it wasn't too long ago that people would make fun of me for training so hard for elk hunting. And, I'd get a lot of hate just because I looked at it like I wanted to train like a professional athlete would for their sport because it means that much to me. And so it's cool to have it go from where I was being criticized for doing what I do to now people want to come and experience it. And not just even in Austin. I'm doing one in Austin, I'm doing one here. And, they sell out fast. It's crazy. It's people, I don't know, it's turned into a thing now. And, you know, have celebrities out that want to shoot a bow, want to try to carry the rock up the hill. And it's just like, it's funny how life works that
Yeah,
you just stick with something. And, um, man, I
I've
don't
got
know.
the
It's amazing
website
where it
pulled
can,
up, so I'm reading it. Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing where it can take you. But, yeah. And then with the truck too, it's like, I just like, as I said, I've been blessed in life. I've been blessed more than I deserve because I've been a piece of shit, and there's really no reason for me to be where I'm at now. I do not deserve this because a lot of people work hard. So I worked hard. Big deal. A lot of people work their ass off, and they're not rewarded with opportunities like this. So I can never take that for granted. And with that mindset, I want to give back. I have more than I deserve. There's nothing I want. I don't need a truck. My kids are healthy. Whatever. So how can I impact others? And if I can give, like the last time I gave this truck away, I gave it to his, 17-year Navy. He's still active, but been in the Navy for 17 years. Been like bought a shirt from me like in 2012, like a Beast Mode bow hunting shirt. And it's just like that experience. I will never forget that day. I will never forget that when he showed up to get his brand new truck and 10,000 in cash. So it's not
Yeah, that's awesome.
whatever. It looks. it looks cool. It's well put together because I have a good team. But at the end of the day, it's just I just want to share my blessings, and that's it. And um, that's all there is to it. There's nothing more. So I don't. I really didn't even know if I was making money off this thing, but I did know that it felt like it took too long last time. So I cut down this contest on this one. I'm giving this truck away quicker. And I really don't even care if it pencils out. It's just, I, you know,
Huh.
I, I shouldn't be here, but I am. So I'm going to try to share in these blessings. But, um,
God, it's so
yeah, so
interesting
that,
to hear you say stuff like that, man. It really is. It's just
oh, I don't,
what a mind. We need more people that have that kind of mindset. This fucking entitled. It's not a
yeah,
generation; it's a society. There's entitled
yeah.
people that are older, and there's entitled people that are younger, and this lack of humbleness, and we just you're a good influence, man. Like I don't mind calling you an influencer because that's a good influence right there.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I've made a lot of screw ups too, and so you know, I just
We
remember
all
like
have.
what I told my kids. It's being a parent teaches you so much, but they would bitch and complain about they wanted to be on this team, got cut, this or that, and I just, Tanner was really good at basketball, and I said, you know, you can't just do the same amount of work as all these other kids. I said, because you just don't have it. But if you outwork them, who knows?
Hmm.
But you can't just go to practice and do exactly what everybody else is doing and think you're going to stand out. And so we started getting in the weight room. I'd stay and shoot with him after practice. We'd shoot 3-pointers every night. And one other kid did it one time, but it was just him. And then he went and got all state, first team, all league, and all this. And that was just through hard work. So it's not like that, nobody's just making this up and it's never worked before. It's worked forever. You have to
Yeah.
work. You
Yeah.
have to
You
work
have to
for what
work.
you want.
Exactly.
And that's never going to change. And so if I influence people or have an impact on people. That's all I want them to take from this. Is just like, hey, you want big goals? Okay, you're ready to put your head down and get to work because that's what it's going to take. Bitching about what somebody else has or opportunities they have or that you got screwed over. It's,
Hmm.
it's not going to get you where you want to go. I can promise you.
Is there is there anything above elk hunting, outside of things like our family, our faith, our things like that? Is there anything above elk hunting in your mind that has asked of you as much hard work as elk hunting has?
Shit. I mean, just making it to a place in life where people actually care what you say. It's that is hard. That is
Yeah.
hard to do. And because it's so weird. As men, we always think that we're special or different or we deserve things. And so once I finally realized that I got to give people a reason to care about what I say, I have to earn that respect. And if you don't earn the respect, why would anybody listen to you?
Yeah.
And and
Bingo.
so that's elk hunting is a byproduct of that because of elk hunting, you had those nice things to say about me as an elk hunter, but it's just through hard work. There's the only reason why we're talking about this. It's the only reason why, I'm on here is because hard work got me to a place where I have a voice. And people don't want to, they want to think there's some other reason. It's like, no, it's like, if you're not where you want to be, you're not fucking working hard enough.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. And
Bingo.
there's other people. Roy had my buddy Roy Roth. He thought that he was, God had blessed him with gifts um, to earn the respect of men, so he could. So hunting was his missions field, is what he'd say, and he'd say that hunters won't listen to just some. He was a bigger guy. Won't just listen to some guy because he thinks they should listen to him. But if through hunting, that earned him respect, and then he could pass on his faith and pass on, you know, his walk in faith, then that was him winning. And he thought that he was bestowed with these gifts from God to be able to preach
Yeah.
and preach to people and get into their heart. And so for him, it was again hunting, and it was hard work, and it was like all based on that. And that was for like this bigger purpose in his life too. So Roy was better than me in that regard. I'm trying, you know, I want to be stronger in my faith. I'm up and down all the time, but I want to have
me
that
too.
same type of influence on people. I want to help men. I want to help, you know, I think men should provide and protect for women and their families. And that's a big role we need to play. But if we're so wrapped up in our own shit, how do we serve that role? How are we strong in faith when we're, you know, drinking every night or bitching about our boss, or how are we going to have that impact that we think we deserve, right?
Yeah.
And so it's Roy's helped me see the bigger picture on what's important and what it takes to get there. And then, you know, I've just known what I've learned, and it's only through hard work that you're going to give people a reason to listen to you.
God, that's great stuff, man. That's powerful stuff. I feel like what we need to do, because one of the things I've talked about, and I talk to my kids about this, that an inflated ego is going to be the biggest roadblock in your own life. You know, you don't deserve anything, and ego gives you this sense that you're like deserving of something that you're not. You know, and I feel like, Cam, I'd love to get you back on the show at some point to talk about all that stuff outside of when it's not School of September.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no
it's these are great topics, and they're conversations that are really important, and people need to have them. And voices like yours are important and hold a lot of credibility. So for those of you listening, go to CameronHanes.com. And that's where you can find the link to win a truck. You could find more information on the lift, run, shoot experience. You could find Cam Hanes anywhere podcasts are found for the Lift, Run, Shoot podcast, which is excellent, by the way. Also, if you need a good read, Indoor is brand new. Bow hunting trophy, blacktail, and backcountry bow hunting, a guide to the wild side. That was one of my first actual hunting specific only nonfiction books I wrote or I read. I'm totally butchering that on the hunting topic, if that makes sense. Fuck.
So, well, thank you for getting the book. Yeah, that was a good one, and it was mostly just sharing my screw ups, a little successes, but yeah, I'm glad it's helped people.
Yeah, it's one of those timeless books too, man. It's a great book. So thanks again for coming on. Stick on the line for just a sec, but I just wanted to, while we're still recording, say really, truly, man, you're an inspiring guy. You're one of the people I like really look up to, not just hunting specific, but just as a man and as an example of somebody who puts their money where their mouth is, and we lack that kind of authenticity in this day and age. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you giving me a couple hours here to chat on my podcast. So thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity. I don't think I'm great at this, but I appreciate you believing in me and the kind words. So it means a lot. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You made it. That's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you're following us on Instagram at The Western Huntsman, and write us a good review at Apple Podcasts. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.